Writing a memoir is a lot like building a house. You need a plan. You go step by step through each phase of that plan and each part of that house. And maybe most importantly, you need a very particular set of tools. But it's really hard to know which tools you need and which tools are just edutainment on YouTube. So today I want to go through the 7 tools you must have to make sure your memoir succeeds. Stay tuned. Do you keep getting stuck in your memoir because you don't know how to make a plan? Well, so did Rita before she joined the Memoir Method.
I know.
Awesome
I'm
though.
very
Yeah.
excited. I mean, I love your system then because I'm like, it really works. I guess like I
Yeah.
can trust to it because it's never worked for me and I've written for
Same.
ever. And I'm like, I guess, and plus I think the accountability helps. Like coming on here once a week, I'm like, it's worth the input and like, giving the money over and stuff because this alone has like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's incredible how much
It's
accountability.
priceless.
Learn more at pageandpodium.com/memoir-method. If you have spent much time searching YouTube for help with your memoir, you know that there are a lot of tools out there. If you've searched the internet, you know there are even more. You can find everything from how-to books to beta readers and literally everything in between. And that's why today what I want to do is get back to the basics. There is a really particular simple set of tools that if you stick to just these 7 things, you are going to have success. And the way that I know that is that these are the 7 tools that we built our group program around, the Memoir Method. If you want to learn more about that program, you saw that in the opening teaser and you'll see it again at the end of this video. But I want to talk through today how you can recreate a lot of those tools. I know, online group programs are not for everybody and not everybody wants to, frankly, spend the money on getting the kinds of support that you're going to get in a group program. But I do want to make sure that you have what you need to move forward with your memoir. If I can help you, that's great. But I'm certainly not trying to gatekeep for anybody else. So let's get to the 7 tools that you need if you want to be successful in your memoir. Now, number 1, you have probably heard me talk about before if you've been watching this channel for long. And it's kind of a combination of 2 things, actually. So the first tool that you need is a core topic and a key message. Now those 2 things go together, so I'm counting it as one tool, but they are different and we have a really specific reason that in the Memoir Method we keep them separate. So first let me tell you what they are and then I'll tell you why it's so important that you think about them as separate things. So your core topic is just simply what you would say your book is about. It's just the topic. So if you think about if someone said, "Oh, what's your book about?" You might say something like, "Oh, it's about when we adopted my daughter." Or you might say, "Oh, yeah, it's about when I, had to leave my relationship." Or maybe it's about going through college or it's about getting my first job. This is a very specific piece of information that honestly doesn't tell us a whole lot other than what events should be at the core of your book. That's why we call it the core topic. The second piece of this is your key message. Now, the key message is undoubtedly something that you know you need, but that what I find is that most people don't take kind of the time and the mental energy to really define it up front. Your key message is the thing that you learned through the process of moving through that core topic, and as a result, the thing that you want your reader to learn. So this is something, if you think about fairy tales, reading fairy tales when you were little, or maybe you read them to your kids, there's always a moral, right? There's always a lesson that the kid is supposed to take away from hearing, Little Red Riding Hood should not have gone off into the woods by herself. You need to kind of stick to what you know, make sure that you're safe. The lesson that we are going to learn through this whole series of events that you're going to talk us through. That's your key message. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about why it's so important to keep your core topic separate from your key message. And the primary reason is that your core topic does a different job than your key message. Your core topic is going to have the job of telling you which events are important in your story and which events can be cut. Now, if you have started outlining your memoir, even if you've just been brainstorming, you no doubt realize it is very, very difficult to decide which things in your life belong in that book and which things in your life are distractions. Even harder than deciding is holding yourself to that, right? We know we want everything kind of on topic, but sometimes it's just like, well, yeah, but that scene's so juicy, or this thing was just so interesting and people love to hear me talk about it. The reason we have our core topic is that it puts guardrails around your book. When you are going through the outlining and planning stage of your memoir, you will know whether or not you want to keep particular things in your book based on whether they are going to serve that very specific core topic. Now, the key message, on the other hand, has a really different job. Your key message is not meant to put those guardrails around your book. Your key message is meant to make sure that as you communicate those scenes, you are doing so in a way that's going to move your reader forward into learning that lesson you want them to learn. So one of these is kind of limiting you. The other is really more giving you a framework. The other is really more telling you how to tell that story, what things to emphasize, what kinds of pieces of wisdom fit, what kinds of things might be extraneous. So we keep those separate in the memoir method, but what's really important is that you have both of them and that you can really clearly see how they fit together. If you can see that from the beginning, then your reader is going to be able to see that as they move through the book, and you're not going to have to feel like you have to beat them over the head with it, right? It's going to be woven into every scene you include because every scene fits that core topic. Every scene serves the topic of your book. And all of those scenes that you have chosen in your book are all going to be directing the reader toward that message. Of course, that's what we all want, right? It's easier said than done. So the first tool that you need is to figure out your core topic and your key message. Now we have brainstorming worksheets and we do a lot of support on this in the group program, but really all you need to do is figure out what is the lesson that you want your reader to learn. Usually it's the lesson that you learned. And what is your book actually about? One thing. All right, so once you have got your core topic and your key message, the second tool that you need is a beginning and an end. Now again, this sounds like two things, but I promise you, you want to think about these things together. Now I'll have another video in this series in a couple of weeks that's going to talk you through how to think about the end of your memoir, because that is, I know, something that people really struggle with. So subscribe to this channel, sign up on our mailing list, make sure that you don't miss that video. But for now, what I want to say is before you even start writing, you need to know the beginning of the story and the end of the story. Here's where that gets complicated. When you're writing a memoir, you are writing about your life. Now, your life started before any of the stuff in your book happened, right? Your life started before you have memories, and you're still living your life. So no matter where you end, by the time your book is finished and out, more things will have happened, right? And this is why we've got to put boundaries around it. What I see so often is that people will start their book and kind of assume or kind of hope that by the time they get to the end, well, then they'll know what the ending is going to be. That is usually not how it happens. Most often, when you just leave it unbounded like that, you'll never finish. It's a sad truth, it's a hard truth, but when we don't have an end point in mind, this project can drag on forever, and it's really hard to motivate yourself. So that is why I really suggest that you define the beginning and the end. Now, the reason this is tool number 2 is because you will have already defined your core topic. So our core topic, as I said, it's going to give us those kind of guardrails around our book. And one of the most useful parts about that core topic is that it is going to tell us what fits in your book and, by extension, where your book begins and where your book ends. Okay, so as you are thinking through, we call these brackets, by the way, brackets that are on the beginning and the end of your book. But as you are thinking through the beginning and the end of your book, the thing that you really want to think about is what is the first day that something was a little bit different, and as a result, you moved through the events of your core topic. Now, one thing I want to let you know, This does not mean that you have to cut everything before that moment. Memoir very often will use things like flashbacks, things like context giving. So you don't need to necessarily, start in childhood because there's a childhood memory you want to include later. What we want to do is start right at the beginning of that topic, the first day that something was different, and that different something led you through this topic. The end, like I said, is a little bit harder. Keep an eye out for that video in a couple of weeks. But what I will say is this. Usually, you are going to end your book before you have fully integrated those lessons into your life. We usually want to see you kind of successfully implement the lesson one time. Usually that's plenty. And then at that point, you're going to live your life. The rest of your life, you're no doubt living by that lesson, right? It's an important lesson to you. But we don't need, as the reader, to see you living that lesson over and over and over. We just really need to see that you learned it. We need to see how it works, and we need to see what it is. So we're going to pick our beginning and our end. Like I said, we call these brackets in the Memoir Method. We're going to pick our beginning and our end, and that's going to be the second tool that you're going to use. Write it down, because it's so tempting to start to stretch, especially stretching that end. So tempting. So write down your beginning and end. That is going to be your second tool, your brackets. Okay, once you have done that, you're very close to the third tool, which is structure. Now, I talk about structure all the time. You could very easily fall down the rabbit hole of structure on just this YouTube channel. But what I want to tell you is that structure is something that you must define ahead of time. And while there are many options for structure, I have a whole video, by the way, on ways to structure or outline your memoir, so you can, pop over to that. This has been a few months ago. But when you're thinking about structure, it actually doesn't matter all that much which defined structure you're using. So I hear all the time that people get kind of caught up on, oh, well, it has to be the hero's journey, or it has to be the heroine's journey, or somebody else's journey. Or, it has to be, oh, I'm going to use the save the cat method, or, it has to be, it's going to be 3-act structure, or however many acts. All these things, they're real. But here's what I want to tell you. Those structures, particularly the hero's journey, by the way, those structures were not written by people that were teaching other people how to write memoir. Those structures were put together based on looking at other people's stories, analyzing them, and figuring out what worked. As a result, a lot of times when you try to take those structures and use it for your first draft, it's going to be so limiting. It's going to be so difficult. I think, I pick on the hero's journey. A lot of people love the hero's journey for memoir. It can work extremely well. So if it's working for you, stick to it. But I will say, I think that's such a good example, because when you're thinking of, those 13 pieces that go around in the wheel, that is a lot of really specific stuff. Sometimes our lives just don't go that way. So what I want to say is that you need a structure, but it does not need to be any particular, very closely defined structure. This is not a place where we want to be perfectionists. Now, within the Memoir Method, we have, it's actually the Memoir Method is the structural device that we use. It just leaves a lot of room for you to move around. So, that's useful. You can kind of look, I've talked about that on this channel in the past. But truly, all I want to say to you is you need to have an outline. And if you don't, if you're getting a little bit overwhelmed, or you're not really sure how to use the hero's journey, you're not sure how to use Save the Cat, do your best. The tool that you need is the outline. So before you start writing any chapters, you should have a full outline. This is something that we spend a lot of time on in the group program. And in fact, when you enroll during an open enrollment period, we always give as a bonus a free outline review, because the outline is so important. Without the outline, you are so much less likely to finish, because your outline is basically your plan. Without an outline, you are so much less likely to keep everything into that core topic and your key message. Without an outline, you are so much more likely to have your book end up either really short or really long. The outline will do so many things for you in terms of the book itself and in terms of your confidence that you can do it. So get that structure down. get the outline down as kind of the visual, accessible representation of that structure so that you have that to lean on as you're moving forward with your book. Okay, so we've gotten a few things here. We've got our beginning and our end, and we have got our structure slash outline. Those are really the kind of content things I want to go over. But I'll tell you what, numbers 4 through 7, these tools are actually not even about your content. They are about the things that help you set yourself up for success that go way beyond what is in the actual book. All right, without further ado, number 4, you are going to need some accountability. Now, think back to when you were in school, or even if you write as part of your job, there is built-in accountability in both of those scenarios. And I used to teach, so I know for a fact that accountability does wonders. Many people will write their paper the night before. I don't suggest this, by the way. It's not a great way to write a good paper. But what we do know from that scenario is that when you have that accountability, you will get it done. For many people, if you don't have that little bit of an external push, it really doesn't matter how much you internally want it. Because once you get to chapter 13, 15, 20, you're going to be tired, and it's going to be really difficult to get yourself motivated and get yourself to finish. But we know from all of the literature in psychology that having an outside accountability, either a partner or system or structure, is going to be the most beneficial way that you can move yourself forward. So we have this built in our group program in 2 ways, and you can replicate either one of these on your own time. The first way that we built that in is that we have some one-on-one accountability. Now, the way that this works in our program, either if you can do the one-on-one upgrade, and then you're going to get weekly meetings so that you're meeting with somebody. And I'll tell you what, people always want to make sure they have something to show if you are meeting with your coach every week. But what most people do at just the regular basic level of the program is that you get every single week, you get a prompt to fill out a form, and then you'll fill your form out letting us know how you're doing. You'll get a personalized response from Emily, kind of giving you some encouragement, answering any questions you brought up, that sort of thing. So how do you do this outside of the group program? The answer is an accountability buddy. Now, this is not a real word, I don't think, at least, but it is a word that I used a lot in grad school. We would always set up accountability buddies when we had big projects. And that was everything from, a term paper all the way through to having accountability buddies for our dissertations, our first books, essentially. And what you need to do is let your accountability buddy know what your plan is. Now, we have a tool for this. You can bop over and get it at pageandpodium.com/plan, and it will help you work through kind of what your timeline is. But really, all you need is to let your accountability buddy know when you're planning to finish what elements. One thing that I would recommend is that you actually send the draft that you were supposed to be finished with to somebody. Now, here's where it gets kind of a little bit hairy, because depending on who your accountability buddy is, you may need to kind of be really clear about what your expectations are. What I would say is, if you are not paying this person, and if this person is not, really important in your life and really somebody that cares a lot about you, it's probably a lot to ask to have them read your draft, and you might not want them to. A lot of times the first draft of a chapter is a little bit of a mess, and particularly, if what you're doing is using this person to help you kind of get this off your computer and to them, a lot of times it might be just kind of messy. You might not want them to read it at all. Still, just the act of sending that draft, knowing that someone could open it and see whether you did what you were supposed to or not, can be a powerful motivator. So I highly recommend that you get a one-on-one accountability buddy. Either that's going to be, somebody in your life, or if if you hop on a Facebook group or some other kind of group like that, and you see that somebody is working on a similar project, you can also ask to be each other's accountability buddies. I've said that word so many times. All right, we're going to get an accountability buddy. Now, done with that word, moving on. The second way that we do this accountability step in the Memoir Method is that we have a group. So the calls are in groups. Everybody's in there so that you're getting to kind of hear where people are. We usually kind of do a little bit of a meet and greet at the beginning just so that we can, get a sense of where everybody is, how they're doing. And then we also have a Facebook group. So what this is doing is just encouraging you to show up. When you have that group, when you know that people will miss you or people will notice that you're not there, you really want to do what you can do to show up for them, right? And one of the things that means is any kind of a group is that you are actually progressing with the work. Depending on where you live, this is probably something that you can replicate. I know, when I have lived in any kind of a city, there are always writing groups that are meeting in different places. So a good way to kind of look and see if there's one in your area would be to Google, writing group, see if there is anybody that is meeting like at a coffee shop or whatnot. But also, you may want to start this yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be in person. I have done virtual Zoom writing groups many times in the past, started during the pandemic when we couldn't meet in person. But that is certainly an option now as well. So if you know other people that are working on books of any kind, having that group check-in can be really, really valuable. Okay, so once we have that accountability, the next tool that you need will come super easily, and that is learning from others. Now, you're on YouTube. You're already doing this actually, but what I want to encourage you to do is look at this in a little bit more personalized way. So of course, this is a core part of the Memoir Method. Not only, are our clients learning from Emily and I, they're also learning from each other. But you can do this with any number of people. I mean, honestly, just talking about kind of your project progress, anybody that does larger scale intellectual or creative projects is going to be able to empathize. They're going to be able to give you kind of their tips, their ways to get unstuck. So think about, who can you learn from? Maybe that is a class that you enroll in at a local, community college or university, whatever is in your area. Maybe that is looking on YouTube and really kind of thinking about, what is my question, and seeing if you can find a video that's specific to that. We don't want to just go down the rabbit hole, but if you can find the answer to one question on a YouTube video. I know people will write to me sometimes with questions. I love to hear them because they give me ideas for these videos, and I want to help you all with the videos. So write into me if you have questions. I can help you, but you need to have some other people that you can learn from, not only because that's going to be great information, but also because it's going to get you out of your head. A lot of times the questions people have are really not even, questions to fret over. The number of times that I have said, here's what I would do, but really either way at this point, many, many times. And the reason brings me to the next tool, the sixth tool, and that is revisions. The reason that learning from others is so important to get you out of your head is because that's mostly what we need. We need to get out of our head so that we can kind of get these tips and tricks, process, take what we need, let the rest go, get the words on the page, because we're all going to have to revise. No matter how good your core topic and your key message are, no matter how strong your structure is, no matter how clear your brackets are, every single person needs to revise. I did a video on this a few weeks ago so that you can look at it, the first step that you need to be revising your manuscript. But whether or not you're ready for that, and I suspect you probably aren't if you're watching this video, the biggest thing I want to let you know is that no mistake is unfixable, and you are going to have to revise no matter what. No one has ever in the history of this world written a good book, and they didn't revise it. It's just not a thing. So we need to build that into our toolkit and into our mindset, that there will be revisions at the end of this process, regardless. It doesn't mean anything about how talented we are, how many skills, how many people we asked for support. Everyone has to revise. So keep those revisions in mind as the sixth tool. And then last but not least, no one will be surprised to hear me say this, but you do need, as your final tool in your toolkit, you are going to need feedback. Now, I would encourage you, after you've moved through all these other tools, you have written this whole manuscript, you've revised it probably multiple times, I really do believe that there is a lot of value in hiring a professional. Now, that can be a freelance editor. That could even be, a friend of yours who reads a lot. I've talked about this in a previous video too. There are lots of ways to get feedback. But really, if you are planning, not to get feedback, but you are going to publish this book, which I assume you are, you're really shortchanging yourself by not getting feedback in time to start revising it. All of us are going to have to revise, and it's really difficult to get through the whole entire revision stage to end up with a really polished manuscript without getting some kind of feedback, and really, ideally, professional feedback. A professional editor is going to be able to tell you exactly what you need to adjust in very clear, very simple terms. A developmental editor or a manuscript review is going to be worth its weight in gold. Okay, so if you have got these 7 things, those 3 that have to do with the content of your book, as well as the last 4 that really are a little bit more about your workflow and your process, that really is all you need. You've got to get writing. Of course, there's no way out but through. But these are tools that are really going to help you structure what you're doing, make sure you're being efficient, and make sure that in the end, you are super, super proud of this book. And you know how valuable it's going to be to readers, and you can feel the value for yourself too. We are open right now to enroll in the Memoir Method. That means if you sign up from now until the end of the month, you can grab that free outline review bonus. That is going to give you a little bit of extra accountability, but more importantly, some professional feedback before you even start writing. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the program, hold tight. I'm going to talk about it right after this little bumper. You can also hop over to pageandpodium.com/memoir-method and read a little bit more about the program there. I would love to see you there. Happy writing. Free advice on YouTube is great, but if you really want to finish your memoir, you need a lot more than that. You need customized tutorials, you need accountability, you need a community of like-minded writers just like you, and you need targeted support from professionals who know your book, care about your project, and are there to help whenever you need us. And you can get all of that in the Memoir Method. This very small curated group of women is the perfect place to finish your memoir. And if you sign up now through September 26th, you will get a free outline review session. This is a priceless extra that is going to help you feel so confident as you move from the planning stages into the writing stages and on to publishing and marketing, all of which is included in our program. This is a 9-month program, and you can learn more about it at pageandpodium.com/memoir-method, or head right over to apply at pageandpodium.com/apply. I'm so excited to see you there.